open the meeting for our Board of Trustees meeting at 6:55. And we have our Pledge of Allegiance for that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we have our March action items. I have several to go through. I was to provide the return check number to Yvette, which I did. I was to move money that I discussed at the last meeting, which I did. Ruth Marie was to set up a meeting with the town hall HR department, which she did.
Yes.
LBOT was supposed to send the director job description feedback to Molly. If you got some, you got some. Yvette was to send the HVAC vendor selection updates if received, when received. I assume that got done because we voted on it. LBOT will meet on the March 31st, 25 in both public and non-public session. That did happen. Excuse me. Yvette will purchase selection of treats for Library Week, National Library Week, which you did. Yvette will create a town memo for staff recognition. Okay. Did anybody have any other action items that they wanted to bring up? Okay. Moving along. The S&P is still a placeholder. We like to keep it there just so we don't forget what it's there for. We have the strategic plan. I know Yvette had comments in your director's report. Do you want to talk about it now or in your report?
No.
Okay. With new business, we welcome Donna LaRue. She's now officially a board trustee. Welcome.
Congrats.
3 years. So the next that's on the list is appoint officers. I want to just briefly explain how that's done. There's a nomination, there's a second, there's a discussion, and then the person has to accept the nomination, and then we vote. So.
I'm trying to remember who had expressed, has anybody expressed interest in being chair?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I would like to nominate Molly Mortimer for chair.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right. Molly, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor that accept Molly
me.
for chair? Is that right?
Yeah,
All those in favor of Molly being chair? All those
4,
opposed?
0, 1.
Abstain? Congratulations, Molly.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Looking forward to that.
All right.
And just a comment that will the officer roles will plan to be more, I guess, official next month, for the meeting, just so we aren't changing things up in the midst here.
Okay. So, treasurer?
Is that-
I would like to nominate Erin as our next treasurer for the board.
I'll second. Discussion? Do you accept the nomination?
Because you're behind me, I will see how it goes for you. Yes, I accept the nomination.
Okay. All those in favor of Erin being our next treasurer?
Oh wait, I don't want to vote for myself. Never mind. I abstain, Molly.
All right. All those opposed? Abstain? That's one. All right. And then we have secretary. I'm going to nominate Donna to be secretary.
I'll second.
Let's have a discussion. You guys really feel like I'm on board. When we meet, there are 50 documents to review. So I'm like just wanting to get into the zone of how do I organize the everything that people are speaking to.
I would
There
be
are literally,
happy to,
25.
support that transition.
Awesome.
It
I'll
is
say that
not-
chair is the easiest position. Just putting
That's
it out
probably
there.
why Molly went for it.
Well,
No, I'm just kidding.
I've developed a little method over the past year of like how to structure based on the packet information, like what the minutes will look like. So I really am, for the most part, just filling in additional information that maybe isn't in the packet and or making sure I have the votes recorded. So I think that's to me, that's kind of the activity of it, and then disseminating the documents.
And when you say the packet, you mean the packets, the agenda? You follow
Yeah.
the agenda and make notes and follow the
Yeah, and the
minutes?
director's report has some of the donations in it, and so I pre-populate some of that
Okay.
just ahead of time because it's easier for me then to also pay attention during the meeting. 'Cause
And if we're in this room, there is a recording
yeah.
available
Perfect.
from Merrimack TV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
So
Thank
if
you.
we're at the library, you're out of luck. But if we're here, there is a recording.
Thank you.
The other part to that is, if at any time you are typing,
Mhm.
we can pause.
Yeah.
We'll pause and be like, are you okay? And you go, yep, or nope, I didn't get it, or,
Well, I do want to acknowledge you've been on the board far longer than I have. Do you have any interest in, rather than?
I know my strengths and weaknesses realistically. I think you'd be fantastic at this.
Okay. Thank you.
But thank you for checking.
Yeah.
so Donna, do you accept the nomination?
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome. So, all those in favor of Donna being secretary?
Opposed.
Opposed, thank you. I was going right to abstain. Abstain. All right. So we have our board. Thank you, Molly, or congrats,
Yes,
Molly,
thank
congrats,
you.
Erin, and congrats, Donna. All right, I got Donna. All right, so we have the fiscal year 24-25 budget, general ledger, invoices, open POs, vendor report. Any comments, thoughts, questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. I didn't have any. The building maintenance project?
Okay, so, we had a flood on last Tuesday. And we had, I called, Granite State Sewer, closed the building, got everyone out, waited for the plumber. There is a pipe under the building, under the road, that sometimes gets clogged. And as I understand it, not being a plumber, there are like pockets in the pipe, and so sometimes there's a clog in the,
Yeah, like dips in the pipe, yeah, probably. Question for, you probably don't know, but the sump that's under the stairs, does the sewer go from the bathrooms to there and then to the street? Cause I just wonder where, if like the clog is between, or, yeah, that would be.
I don't know. This is, we've had to call the plumber to snake the drains that are in the floor or the drains that are in the bathroom floor. So
Yeah.
there's one right outside of the elevator, and then there's the ones in the bathroom. So the ones in the bathroom, the floor drains flooded.
Right.
So DPW had put a camera into this pipe a couple of years ago. So I honestly don't remember off the top of my head what that was, but it was like, yes, this is a problem. So,
Did they camera from the street side, or did they camera from the building? Okay.
I don't even know.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm
this-
just trying
this
to
was a
think,
couple
'cause
years ago,
if
so.
we're like replacing the sewer to like the building, spectacular, that's not. But if we're replacing the sewer from the bathrooms all the way to the street, we're talking about money we probably don't have. And that's would be a long-term shutdown to literally hammer out all the concrete and replace those pipes. Unless they could be lined, which I'm not sure we could line pipes that small, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the list now as a long-term thing to investigate, replacing the pipe. But back to the flood. You know, we had Servpro come in and set up their fans and dehumidifiers, do the cleanup. They came back on Thursday morning to clean again and sanitize. They had scanned the areas that were affected, and so that's what the delay was. We didn't have restrooms available to the public or to the staff, so that's why we opened late. So all the equipment is removed. That part of it is finished. I put in a call to Paul McCallie to make an insurance claim. I don't have a bill from Granite State Sewer yet, but I do have a bill from Servpro, which is like $11,000, $12,000, which I'll send over to Paul. And then when I get the invoice from Granite State Sewer, I'll send that over to him as well. But we have a $10,000 cap on claims, of these types of claims. So kind of in process, kind of finished. That's where we are. That was a nightmare. It was National Library Week. So, other things, we met with Jonathan Diaz, and I put all of the items that we talked about with him on the list. Which might, that's why I have a new list. Okay.
Yeah, all the bottom page too.
Yeah. Yes, it's very small, I'm sorry. So it's testing the panic buttons, updating the phone extensions, moving our email from .org to the towns.gov, updating the alarm panel, assigning .gov emails to staff. Not everyone has a .gov email. The part-timers don't have a .gov email. But with this email, then one is more secure than the ORG that we're using now. It would be handled all by the town instead of by our vendor. And then the staff can access the town's employee portal. And there's lots of opportunities or lots of reasons why they would want to be able to access the portal. Install additional security cameras and additional DVR to expand the coverage. Those are the things we talked about with him. So kind of, you know, again, just notifying so that you have some information that stuff we're thinking about, talking about, we're gonna take care of. There was a question, I think there was a question actually during my evaluation about the clump room lighting, which I just want to draw your attention, it was in my director's report in October. So you were told about it, but there's no movement on it. So it's on the list now. Anything I'm forgetting about the buildings?
I
What about
just had a quick
for
question. When Stanley came in at the end of March, did they look in the pit to see if there was water then?
No, there's no water because it's not the right season yet. But the scavenger pump was replaced last Friday. I don't think that made it on this report, but it's already in maize. So that, the problem with the leaking oil, that's complete.
Okay.
The water in the pit is still needing to be addressed because we have to wait for a heavy rain, and then we'll come
Okay,
over
I
and
just
do
figured
it.
with how much it's rained lately, that if they were there on the march and there was no water in the pit.
No.
Okay, so
So
there's
it's
no water
still-
yet.
Not yet, but
Okay.
I think we expect that there will be.
It's
Okay.
good news though, there's none right now, cause the water table is super high. So,
All right, good.
that's exciting.
That's good. I was just curious about any contact with Chiller Technology.
Kelly should have notified them, but, not yet, no. I know that, Garland is scheduling to have the roof scan done. We're going to do an infrared roof scan, and that's May, because we're waiting for spring. So I've been in contact with him about that. From Stanley, we received the maintenance, contract, which they never sent us, so now we have it. Yeah, it's, something is always happening in the building, so it eventually gets on a report, but, the pump replacement didn't. And the scan didn't, I don't think. Joint loss is coming tomorrow, so, we'll see what they say.
Who is?
Joint loss.
Do you want to explain what that is?
Sure. The town has a committee called Joint Loss. It's made up of a mix of managers and non-supervisory staff. And they have a calendar of when they tour town buildings to see where maintenance issues are and write a report for us. So things that are on this building list have come from the joint loss sometimes. One that's like a long-term wish list, out-of-service tanks and mechanical room should be removed. If we do a big demo of the library, then we'll remove them. Otherwise, I think you toured this.
They're very,
You said
they're
this.
like in the basement, entwined in piping, like, it's not like you could just hire some guy to get them out in a day. It would be, you would be pulling up a floor or something
Right,
to get to them.
right.
So they're not worth it right now.
Right. So,
They're not causing any harm, they're just unused tanks in the ceiling.
sure, but joint loss brought our attention to it, and now it's a thing on a list.
It's a thing on the list.
So, thing on a list.
And if they ask about it, we can be like, it's on our maintenance list.
That's on our list.
It's on the list.
So,
Anybody else have any other questions? All right, moving on. Policies? I didn't see any policies.
we don't have any
No
policies.
policies. Grants. We have a subscription to Grant Station, is that right? I
Yep.
think that's right.
Yep.
Grant Station, that has like thousands of grants out there for various different opportunities, whatever you want. This was something that Jen Jobin had been looking at the time. I also had looked through it. If anyone is interested in at least peeking at it, looking up stuff, I can definitely send you the login information if you're interested. Default budget draft, fiscal year 25-26.
Yep. Okay, take one. Okay, this is take one, pass it around.
Take one, pass it around.
So I did send this to your emails just before I left the building, because we've been nonstop talking about this at the library. Okay, so last Wednesday, the town manager called a meeting of the department heads, and he said, here's what I would like to see from you. We are meeting Friday. He said to the department heads he was gonna have individual meetings with them. We don't fall under the town that directly, so we haven't had a meeting like that, he and I. What he asked for was $20,000. I do not think we can do $20,000. I've written up, I met with my department heads, and we had several discussions over the entire week. Everyone is looking at statistics and the budget. Alyssa was good enough to take the changes we discussed and put them in a spreadsheet. So that's what we have here. I made some other changes after some other discussions. So I've also given you a printout, a narrative of our rationale for some of these cuts, just so you could kind of try to understand where we were coming from. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is under wages. We would not want to see the salary schedule that the board worked so hard on, and that really needs to be implemented. We would not like to see that go away. We think that needs to remain in the budget. The only adjustments that we made were the salary to our new department head in youth services, because they can start at step 1. I would request a change in the patron services department head, because they've been in their position for 3 years, and they should not be at the same step as a new department head. And then we have an open position that we've posted that would start at step 1, so there was an adjustment under there. Under the CERC part-time staff, Alyssa had the original calculation that you had seen, that was the accepted budget. Their weekend rotation hours were calculated differently, so she recalculated them so it would be a little more clear. But it doesn't change that part of the bottom line of the budget. What we've done in the past, one thing Paul had suggested we do, which I agreed with, was to go back to our goals. Each department has goals. And so we went back to our strategic plan, which is new, so there are new priorities, which are very easy to look at, and then try to interpret budget cuts through that. I typed up a couple of the priorities that jumped out at me. Priority 2 is enhance access to diverse resources and services. One of the particular sub-goals of that was expand the collection to include more digital resources and multi-language materials. Priority 3 was foster community engagement and inclusive programming. There were 2 points, 1 and 3 under that I think pertain to this. Increase programming across all ages, including adult education, youth activities, and family-focused events. And then 3 was investigate alternative programming hours. Priority 4 was increase library advocacy, which I actually mentioned before when we were talking to you about advocacy. So that's a goal. And those 3 goals are recruit a sustainable and self-perpetuating core of library ambassadors to promote the library and volunteer. 2, inform and educate patrons about library and related town operations. And 3, advocate for funding to support staffing and operational needs. So I think part 3 went in with the, connects to the salary schedule. The other 2 are related in my mind in terms of some other ways that I'm gonna just walk you through my thought process. I put a bit in here about collection development because when we've cut in the past, we've kind of trimmed the flexible spots of our budget, which is personnel, materials, and programming. So not touching personnel, the flexible parts of our budget are materials and programming. Health insurance costs have gone up, so we can't touch those. Maintenance things, all of the utilities, we don't tend to touch those, and they're gonna go up anyway. So there's not a lot of wiggle room in our budget. So where we could theoretically cut, and what we've done in the past, is kind of chip away at programs and materials. I don't think that's a good idea. It's like a slow death for services or materials, and then we just are always asking the trustees, can you supplement this with some other funds? So I don't see the point anymore of chipping away at something. I think any cut that we make is a challenge. It is not easy to come up with a default budget. It may have appeared in the past to look like it was easy. It's never easy. We look at our collection and we assess our collections year-round. That's part of what I wrote here in the top, under collection development. So collection development means, how are we going to decide what we buy in the library? How are we gonna decide when to withdraw it? Has it served its purpose? You know, when we go through things in the nonfiction collection, for example, if it's something like we just weeded last year, books by Dave Barry. Who knows who Dave Barry is? Okay, that's an age thing. You know, that's a very particular generation for people who read his column or his books, you know, and they don't read them anymore. So it's outlived its usefulness, and we know that because it doesn't circulate. So we look at the statistics. You know, but this is a process. So we know that each book has a lifespan. And, you know, like it or not, when that book's lifespan has expired, we withdraw the item and put it in the book sale. Sometimes part of this process is saying, let's give this item another shot. You know, let's make a display. And we do lots of things to try to manipulate the way we can catch a patron's eye. And if it really still doesn't go out, then it's gone. And we might give it 2 more years, you know, and look at it again. So, you know, in the past, when we've cut items from our budget, it's because we were already looking at that and saying, well, this database, well, is the cost versus usage, you know, how does that weigh out? It's going to hurt someone, because we always say, you know, the library has something for everyone, but not everything in the library is for everyone. So I don't like romance books. I don't read romance books. I will never read romance books. I would cut all of the, you know, if it were Yvette and not Director Yvette, we would not have them I don't care. You know, but that's my personal library. You know, I mean, so it's like when you're serving a population of 28,000 people, then you're gonna have something for everyone, you hope. So, you know, when we look at statistics for some of these things, we're never gonna get 100% usage. You know, we're gonna get, these people gravitate to this database, or this one, or that one. And then when we decide to make a cut, it's gonna upset those folks. So when we cut Hoopla, I was getting phone calls and emails from people who were upset. But it was not a stable structure of payment, and it was impossible to sustain. So that's kind of your quick and dirty Librarian 101 on collection development, so you understand the kind of conversations we have around our table. One of the things I noted here about advocacy, and why I brought in strategic priority number 4, which is recruit a sustainable and self-perpetuating core of library ambassadors to promote the library and volunteer, inform and educate patrons about library and related town operations. I think our library users must not understand that their taxes support the library. Because if they understood this, more than 5,000 people would have come out to vote. Our budget failed by 199 votes. I can't make a comment on it because that would probably not be received well. So we need to work on our advocacy. That's I'm gonna be looking at like my story time. I wanna see all your eyes. Donna, I'm not seeing your eyes on this. I told you we don't recommend staffing. I think programs also, in terms of the kind of flexible funding, no, it doesn't make sense. We would just be chipping away at services that our very, very active users use. And I think it's a slow bleed, and I don't think it's the smart move. We propose cutting Libby. Libby is already in stasis. It's already an unknown because of the cuts to IMLS. It is a challenging service in terms of the sustainability for it. So Libby, New Hampshire Downloadables, is a service that really all 234 libraries pay into. but the dues formula is based on the population, card numbers, users. So Merrimack is a big town compared to the other towns, so our dues are almost, well, they're $14,000 right now. I did the math, also Alyssa did the math on page 2 for tracking the increases from the previous years and projecting out what our increases would be for next year, which would be almost $20,000. So we are trying to look for a way to present you a default budget. And I cannot give you a default budget without cutting several staff. But cutting downloadables makes more sense to us. You know, this is a digital library service that all of the libraries in the state of New Hampshire can access, but we have Cloud Library, which is a digital library service that only 13 libraries need to access. So we're already paying into this service. And when you look back at our strategic plan, we had complaints during those focus groups that our patrons are not getting the books from Libby, and they're on an incredibly long hold list. And the thing with what the publishers are doing now is they are putting a like a lease on a license on how long we can have a title. So the title expires before our patrons are getting to it. I don't know why we're paying this much money. And this is something, again, we've been looking at this. I've been looking at this for 4 years because I brought it up to GMELCS when I became the president, and that was 4 years ago. So I think, you know, there's some rationale that we came up with about the pros and cons of this. You know, and I can read them aloud, so they're in the public record if you like. You can also obviously read along. Okay, so this is the second year that residents voted against all increases to the town budget. That signals to us a strong opposition of increases of any kind. If the state continues to have IMLS funding, and that will go towards the platform of digital, of the downloadable books, and it also pays for staffing to manage that collection. We will see an increase. And our residents are saying they don't want to have an increase. So that's the message from the residents that we are trying to listen to. The downloadable service offers magazines. We are not able to see which magazines are being checked out. We can see obviously what people are checking out of our hard copy magazines, but we can't see what people are using. We just see there's use. So that's a little too vague for us. We also have no control over purchasing in that collection. The staff at the State Library does all the purchasing for New Hampshire downloadables. Whereas in Cloud Library, there is a rotation of members of the Digital Library Group, one of the GMOX groups, and they purchase, and they do that every month, and it rotates around. So Reggie is one of our purchasers for Cloud. So we have more control over that. I'm bringing this up because one of the strategic plan goals was to, you know, purchase and provide a diverse collection of digital materials, including foreign language. We would have total control over that with Cloud, whereas we don't in Libby. Let's see. Yeah, we just don't know what's going to happen with IMLS. And I think if we need to make budget cuts to make sure we can present you a default budget, it doesn't make sense to me to keep, to kind of hang on to something that may not exist in 2 weeks. I do think we need to explore other sources of funding I had a conversation with someone on the Development Fund Committee who said, oh, there's this trust fund over here, and I'm like, well, I'll look at it in a minute, but, I think that's something, and Jenny, you brought up the grants, but we definitely need to look into other funding sources, because we can't continue to be making these cuts. It's not feasible. So those are my notes on that. I think if we cut the $14,000 from downloadables, I would be more comfortable putting $4,000 of that into cloud. Reggie, we met with him today, and he was saying that the platform can expand in terms of the collection if there was more money going to it. Right now, it's kind of a pay-as-you-can. There's no breakdown for each library about what they put in. We tend to put in a lot. We put in 5, I think, every year. So if we were able to increase that, then they'd be able to buy more. Have I forgotten anything?
No, I think you got it all. Okay, I have 2 questions.
Yes, please.
One, when it comes to cloud, we've been putting in about $5,000 a
Yep.
year. What is the total that is going into cloud per year? So like, are
Oh,
we putting
I
in
don't have that
$5,000 and
number.
then everybody else is putting in $2,000 kind of thing?
It's a range of probably 2 to 5, so I don't have that number
Okay.
with me, because that's in the GML's budget, which is at the library. I was gonna say at home, but no.
And
the
then
library.
my other question was do we have a number of how many Merrimack patrons are using Libby currently, or how many downloads are coming from Libby?
Yeah, we looked at the stats, and it's like between 300 and 500 a month was usage. I did, but I'm not sure if those are unique users, or if they're just,
So
it's circs, or if it's an
Yeah.
automatic renewal.
So it's 300 to 500 loans.
Yes,
Okay.
For Libby?
yes.
Oh. I thought when the IMLS came out last month, or when you talked to, you had 3,500 per month for Merrimack users.
I'd have to go back, because again, we were under the gun with this in terms of time, and there was a flood.
Yeah.
So I've been dealing with the physical flood, and other people have been looking at this. But Reggie was showing me the stats today, and that's what we were looking at. We didn't have a lot of time.
I have a question on your spreadsheet, under the hourly wages.
Yep.
The 1,105, all those, it says PT circ staff are on weekends, rotation is not
Right.
calculated. So this is in addition to, so instead of taking it out of that,
I think she was taking it out of the subline.
okay. Okay, so there's more now. There's more going towards the weekends than had been calculated before.
Yes.
Okay.
If I understand your question, yes.
Okay.
I have a question as a new trustee. The town manager asked for $20,000. And did he say, I
No.
need you to cut 20, or
No.
I just need your opinions on how much you should cut?
So that's what he's looking for.
He's looking for
So
20.
the town manager cannot dictate what the library does.
Right,
The town manager can make a cut to the bottom line.
okay. Thank you.
So we're finding what we can find. I can't find 20. I mean, I think with the cuts we're proposing, it's already gonna hurt people. I
We
mean,
cut
how much do we wanna hurt people? That's kind of the,
Did we cut above the amount that was requested last year?
yeah, we did.
Okay.
We made really deep cuts, and I think we realized that. I think on the staff side, I'll say for
Yeah.
myself, felt it, with trying to do coverage for desks and different tasks, so, yeah, no, that was a tough one.
It also explains why it's a little more difficult to find the cuts this year.
Yeah, maybe,
Um,
that was a deep one, yeah.
yeah, it's a good question.
I mean, if you're looking at the town budget overall, it's like they have to cut like 5%. And they're not asking us to cut 5%. So I think it's pretty reasonable. If it was just a percentage across the board, we would be in very rough shape.
Well, I mean, one thing we kicked around at our table was what's the percentage of the library budget compared to the whole
Yeah.
town, and it's minuscule, and so we could give them $5,000 if we're gonna run those numbers. I think we wanna present that we're all in this together. I think alongside that, you know, I think, I would recommend to the staff that they look into forming a union, seeing what the pros and cons are of that. I was at, an event and I ran into, someone who was a former trustee here and former development fund committee who's now living elsewhere and is a trustee over there, saying, oh, our budget passed and, we're separate. Our budget is separate from the town. So it's like, okay, that's also something that can be researched. That's, you know, we're gonna have to get creative. I don't know. That's, I can't, you know, I'm not a trustee. So I'm a librarian and I can say, I'm hearing this from people and here's a suggestion and,
Do we know how often people are using the cloud database, cloud library?
I don't have those stats here with me.
Yeah, I was just
Um,
curious, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Reggie, and he said, you know, if something's not available at Libby, and Alyssa had said the same thing because they're both on the desk and interacting with patrons and helping them to find materials. You know, if something is not available on Libby, they can redirect them to cloud and they'll find something. So it's getting used when people can't find something or can't find something or can't, or have to be on a very long hold list. So, yeah.
Well, I feel like this is a very thorough, assessment of, like, going through and, you know, taking another hard look. Like, I think the comments were made, from the town perspective as well about, like, well, it took us 6 months to develop a budget and then it didn't
Yeah.
pass,
Yeah.
kind of, you know, which definitely leaves us in a tough spot as well, so, I mean, I would agree with your comments about the salary schedule work, you know, I think that's like kind of hits home, I think, for this group in particular. The amount that's budgeted for fiscal '25 for Libby is 15.
That's rounding up. So I mean, I looked at the actual, I think is more 14, 12.
I mean, I don't know that I'm, you know, I don't know that I would be like happy about any of the, any of the cuts in particular, so I'm not a digital person, so, you know, that's, you know, neither here nor there, but.
The rationale makes sense if it may not be available in a couple weeks regardless. And I don't know where else you would cut.
Right, that's the question then, right, if it's
Right.
not that,
Well, we can shave, we keep shaving, but then it's like, what's the point of having programs if we're gonna keep shaving programs? I mean, that's, it doesn't make sense.
Just out of curiosity, where did this budget come from?
This was a saved budget in
it was the approved budget, and then we started to manipulate it. And it got out of hand, but,
Okay.
we started from the submitted budget.
Okay,
Cause the bottom line
this
doesn't match
doesn't,
what
I was
was
gonna say,
approved.
this wasn't what I had either.
Okay,
Um,
I mean,
So.
there's lots of people touching this at the library right now.
No,
so
I'm looking
that
at
could be
like
the
the
problem, but-
2025, 26 numbers, under department and following it down, and there are, four that don't match, and one specific one that's relatively important is the capital reserve went down to 50,000 as opposed to the 75.
Okay.
But,
Yeah. I just know that it was 1.3 on this spreadsheet, and we approve 1.279.
that's what I
Okay.
have, 1.279.
That doesn't count for our cut, does it?
No,
Okay, just
it
checking.
doesn't.
And the time frame for getting info back to the town is?
Well, Friday, or the town council is meeting on the 24th.
So I don't understand the numbers if it's off, if the 1.3 is off.
So,
Under department by 20,000. Where's the 20,000?
There is no 20, it's a suggestion.
I don't know.
if you take approximately 20,000 from the budget that we voted on, if you take 20,000 off of it, it's actually like this year's current budget.
Okay.
It's like $19,774. If we can find that amount, then we'll have what this year's budget is.
Okay. Gotcha.
Well, we had, I mean, again, this was me doing this and 5 other things. You know, we have, I'm seeing a difference of 5,721 when you make an adjustment for the department heads and the, library assistant. Because I have people who are starting at step 1, and then I would move one person up to step 2. So there's a little bit of, it's not a cut, but it's an adjustment.
Right.
Which
Yep.
makes sense.
Yep.
And then downloadables is, you know, kind of is what it is.
Is there, I know we did this last year, is there a way to like front load things in terms of like office supplies or maintenance supplies?
Trying.
Yeah, yeah.
We did start doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. We took out, Beanstack, which is under 158359, and we were just talking about this to use PLC, sustaining the library for that. Because that was in the budget, so we pulled that one out. You know, databases that are on the chopping block, anyway, A to Z databases, $3,000. Reggie came up with, which is on, page 7 under 158450 for materials under periodicals. He looked at the lowest circulating titles, which means they do circulate, they're just the lower ones. $450.
Are there any opportunities among neighboring towns to partner? I mean, I know there's so much, whatever goes on between them, but like where some budgets passed and some didn't, I mean, is there any, they can, help in certain ways? Not, you don't wanna cut anything, but, if there was something that needed to be trimmed, can neighboring, libraries assist in any way as far as resources?
We're in a consortium. We're already doing it,
Already doing it.
yeah.
So
No.
if you,
So under materials, you have adult fiction and teen materials and periodicals.
Yeah, if you wanna chip away, we have the numbers.
Now, you have the negative, or looks like a negative,
Yes.
but in the total, it's an increase.
I am just, yeah, we can, no, that was, yeah, I see that one's wrong. No, that should be 12, but I've, when I go over it too many times, then I don't see any of it, so. Another version of this was correct. But no, if you look at the chip away, that's what we're proposing to cut.
Okay.
I mean, I was trying to get a running total, but
Right, I understand.
that was too much.
so you're suggesting if you cut, adult fiction by $1,000, that the consortium, if somebody wanted an adult fiction book, they could always get it from
Mhm.
a library, okay. Is that true for the manga? and the
It's true for
teens?
anything except Library of Things.
Okay.
Library of Things don't go on the van.
Yeah, I know.
And you're proposing cutting the A to Z database as an option? And I don't know how much that's used.
It's used, but it has the lowest stats of all the databases, and someone, there are people who use it. They're just not gonna have it anymore.
No, obviously, we don't want to cut anything, but,
No, of course not.
but if we're looking at trying to get closer to the town number,
Mhm.
if you add that to the 14,000 something,
Mhm.
that would get us to 17 something. like
Yeah.
that.
I think the proposal is 10, right?
Oh,
So-
I think you decide what you wanna do.
Oh.
But if Janet is saying to get at least to this year's budget.
I'm just, I mean,
Sure.
that 20 puts us at this year's budget. That's
Mhm.
not where we necessarily need to go. Okay, personally, I am a huge, and I have to just say it, I'm a huge digital fan. So, like, having gotten rid of Hoopla was like skin crawling to me, and now getting rid of Libby, it's like really bothering me. But I understand it. I think you actually cut too much.
Okay. I mean, we were trying to do one very clear downloadable, and then chipping away at a lot, so,
Yeah,
but also, I would still wanna put money in cloud.
Right, so it was cut 14, but put 4,000 into
oh,
cloud.
I understand.
Yeah.
I would actually propose, because of the uncertainty of Libby and the
Mm.
IMLS, that we pay for it and just have it come out of trustee funds. Just to not totally get rid of it, if it's gonna go away, but we put it in the budget,
Mhm.
then it's,
Right.
then
Still
if it
have
goes
it,
away,
right.
but if it goes
We didn't
away,
lose any
we didn't
money.
lose any money,
We
exactly.
still have
Right.
it, right.
So it's paid through this year,
Which is, when does-
25.
Okay,
It's just
So
paid,
To
we paid it,
December.
yes.
Okay.
okay.
Didn't know how, what
Yeah, I
the
didn't know either.
calendar is.
It's, they're on the calendar, because it's a state.
Everything is very
It-
different.
Everything
It
is
is.
different, everything is different, yes. Yep.
Um,
What funds exactly? Because when you say trustee funds, you mean something else than what I might hear. So what do you really mean by that?
I'm talking about any what?
Well, and I was thinking, because we were talking about the increases in it, we don't know what it's gonna be next year. Is it gonna be 14.5? Is it gonna be 19? Then we could revisit it when we have the real,
Mhm.
Yes,
Number.
we can.
Yeah.
and decide if
Yeah.
the trustees are willing to put that money.
Especially if it's out of fines, because we can pay for it out of fines, because it's material.
Okay, okay,
Because that doesn't, that's, hey.
okay.
So that you're not going anywhere?
Um, personally, I would just like to check the numbers,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
and
feel better if we got it into the spreadsheet where we had it and confirmed like
exactly. But take out Libby with the understanding that, going forward, we would see how much it costs and pay for it out of fines. And then, but Libby in and of itself was 14 in here, I think. So that's a huge chunk right there.
Yep.
And then there's a difference going on in the wages, which I can't figure out right now, but, and we'll just see where everything falls out. What's today? Today's Tuesday.
Mhm.
Okay, I can definitely do the numbers by tomorrow. So, what? Is there any other thing in here that, like, if the staff wages get situated, Libby gets cut, the addition, you still want the addition to cloud,
Yeah, I still think yes.
okay?
Mhm.
I'm gonna write that down. Cloud plus 4, no living staff. Then I guess it's all about what priorities left. 'Cause I don't know where that leaves us, but
Well,
once
Well,
we hit.
doesn't it sound like it leads us to about 10,000 we need to?
No. Well,
10,000 plus open position opportunity,
Right.
maybe, is what I was hearing.
well,
Because the 14.
10,000,
I had five
but then
for
there's the
that.
36 from
Right.
the department
mean,
head
there's-
thing.
Yeah.
I do think one thing we need to, address as a board is moving the other department head to step 2.
Yep.
Because that has come before us twice, and we've said no, that we were just looking to get everybody on the scale. And so I think if whatever's gonna happen with that needs to be addressed as a board.
I agree.
Because we voted on the schedule and we voted where
Mhm.
everybody was gonna land, so.
that in non-public.
Mhm.
But if we need to do a meeting at the library Thursday afternoon or something, I'm not against.
I'll be there.
I'm gonna be there for
Right.
some program. There's always a program on Thursday. So I'm totally, if somebody else can meet and we could, if you can email it out tomorrow, we could review it and we
Yeah.
need one other person Thursday.
This evening, I'm sure I could.
Okay.
But again, if we email it out and
Mhm.
you have issues and you're not gonna be able to make it Thursday, still email back and be like, hey.
Well, you
I
can't
want
have a
this.
meeting, you can email the
You can
chair.
email back to the email the chair and say.
About the result of the,
The email. If you email
Or
tomorrow,
if Janet sends out the budget and you have an issue with the budget, don't reply all,
Yeah.
just reply to Janet,
There you go.
and then it's not a meeting.
or Molly, the director.
oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm
Or
saying?
Janet.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
'cause
yeah,
you're
yeah.
not starting till
In terms of
May.
decision-making, we're not doing that on email. That's what
Right,
you're
we're not
saying.
doing it on
No,
email,
Yes.
but if you have a comment or something you don't like, send it back to Janet so that
okay.
then we
Yeah.
could discuss it
Yeah.
when we meet.
That would make more sense.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so I will send this out tomorrow, Thursday afternoon.
I don't know,
I don't either.
it's in the calendar.
I have it there, I just have a meeting at library.
Yeah, not a lot.
One's at
So
2:30.
I'm just
Nine,
writing
9:30 and,
Janet's action item.
yeah, 2:30.
9:30 and 2:30.
Mhm.
2:30.
What time?
No.
Different.
We have a meeting.
Oh.
Okay.
9:30 and 2:30 on Thursday. All right, so on Thursday afternoon, you're there already.
I am there probably from like 4 o'clock on, but if I need to get there earlier, I'm happy to pop in.
Can anybody else come 4 o'clock on?
4:30 on.
What was that?
That's fine.
4:30
I'm there till
will
after
be the
5,
earliest
so.
I could do.
Probably the earliest I could do would be 5:30 if I get out on time.
Okay. So, Molly, how was 4:45?
Sure.
Budget.
What's that date?
So maybe we'll
17,
do
16?
4:45.
17.
4:45. And if you have comments,
Thank you.
send them.
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
so 4:45 on Thursday. I'll send this out tomorrow, see where we stand with certain cuts and whatnot, and taking up Libby, adding Portal Cloud, figuring out staff, which we'll talk about in non-public, and we'll finalize it on Thursday at 4:45, hopefully. Okay. Director's report.
Oh. Still me?
Still
I'm
you.
talking a lot. Okay, let me find my report. Well, thank you for going over this, because it was a beast. I don't have any director's report. Here we go. All right, a few gifts to accept. We received a book entitled Something to Carry by Nicole Scroy. We would like to add this to our adult fiction collection.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the book entitled Something to Carry by Nicole Scroy.
Second.
All those in favor?
Okay, thank you. And we received a book entitled The Visual Marketer by Jim McLeod. We'd like to add this to our adult nonfiction.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the book entitled Visual Marketer by Jim McLeod.
Second.
All those in favor?
Those are anonymous.
No?
No. Jim McLeod.
Oh, that's
Oh,
not
I
who.
thought it was the author. Oh.
Thank you.
Okay.
Visual Marketer by Jim McLeod.
Yeah, that's the name of the
That's the
author.
person who donated the book, not the person that wrote the book. Sorry.
Oh,
I
hold
am
it.
thinking
Hang on,
author
hang on.
because
Is
you're
it
saying
the
title
author? 'Cause
by.
I thought it was the
thinking
author
what you
as
were
well.
thinking,
I'm
it was the
sorry.
author.
Donated
From.
by the author.
By the-
Oh.
Donated by the author.
Double whammy.
Now we're talking.
Okay.
Good catch.
Keep it.
Everybody's right, everybody's right.
Oh, also, the first book also, Something to Carry, was also
Yeah.
donated by the author. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Ah.
Theme.
That is amazing.
Reggie gets around.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
I'll just say that. Okay. So thank you. Yeah, so some of the things, I usually, when I do a director's report, I highlight things in red that I wanted to mention to you and have it spoken into the public record. So there's no change for Governor Ayotte's hiring freeze, so we still do not have a state librarian. There's no change to the executive order defunding the IMLS grant freeze. However, staff at IMLS were either put on leave or terminated. There's a new head of IMLS who has put out statements on social media, which you're welcome to go find. The vendor that manages the public library data collection for IMLS was canceled. So we submit a state report. All of the libraries are strongly encouraged to submit a state report with all of our data. It's data that's beyond what's submitted to the town report. And so that vendor was canceled. So we're up in the air about how long is the data going to exist on that website until it disappears. So the deadline for us all to complete the annual report is the end of April. And now the acting state librarian is saying, please finish it as soon as you possibly can, because we don't know when this data is going to disappear. They are downloading it regularly so that we have a record of it. So I'm working on it, but, I'm almost done with it, but we had a flood. Let's see, other things that I highlighted. National Library Week, thank you for the snacks. They were fabulous. I took pictures. Jen and I took pictures. We set it up and everyone loved them.
Good.
So the staff gave me suggestions, and it's just kind of interesting to see how the staff changes their snack preferences change.
They were very healthy.
They were very healthy.
Yeah.
They all
Yeah.
want hummus and crackers and cheese and crackers and, I think the chips were the last to go. Candy went first, but, it's like, they just wanted a lot of hummus, which I think was hysterical. I updated the bills that are crossing over at the State House. This is as of Friday. So just, again, it would be great if you guys looked into that and did some research on things that are, I'll just say that. Yep, so looks like that's everything I highlighted, but do you have any questions about anything in the report?
I saw there was info about the hiring, interviewing.
Yep, we're
that's
interviewing.
going on.
Yep.
Is that the most recent update? Just that interviews are in progress?
Oh, yeah.
and-
Yes,
okay.
we're interviewing a lot of people
Yeah.
for all 3 different openings. Tomorrow, Jenny and I will have a marathon of interviewing
Okay.
for 2 positions. Some candidates are out of state, so some interviews will be on Zoom. And then Janet and I have less of a marathon on Thursday. We've got bookends
Yeah.
on Thursday, so that's gonna be exciting. We're excited about that.
Okay.
Any other questions about my report?
I do have a question about Isabel Newell.
Yes.
Newell coming back. Is she subbing? Is she?
She would be helping during the summer because we expect people to go on vacation
Okay.
and we're busier. So she's a student.
Right.
I don't know that we can have her come back in the fall. just because of the budget. But, yep.
Okay. That was my only question. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. All right, moving on to the treasurer's report. Looking at the balance sheet, we have, for the fines, we started with $8,634.17 for March, and we ended with $8,359.34. And then for special, we started with $54,057.95, and we ended the month with $53,903.21. Anybody have any questions?
I actually have, can you, you said this
I
later
know.
than you usually do. Can you just draw attention to any donations
Yep.
that you
I
can
wrote them
ask the
down.
board to approve? Thank you.
There was $20.36 of anonymous donations, so, I'd like to make a motion to accept the $20.36.
Second.
All those in favor? Excellent. And then as far as the transactions for Square, the Square transactions for March that we need to move is, I'd like to make a motion to move $532.79 from primary savings to fines.
Second.
All those in favor? All our Square transactions go into a primary savings account. It's like a, transition account, and then from there, we move the money to their respective, whether it's fines or special. I'd like to make a motion to move $1.85 from primary savings to special.
Second.
All those in favor? Excellent. So I need to color those red. I don't think I have anything else. No, that's it. I guess the only other comments I wanted to make were, with respect to, next month, start preferably having the wish list started at some point so we can finalize it for June. And then, I know this is being worked on, but I was looking at the PO list, and all but one say, like, request to be closed. And if that could actually be, I know, done by the end of the fiscal year would be great.
So, is there a specific assignment
No,
of
it's-
action item
it's
around
not really.
those, or, okay?
No, it's
Just
a
reminder
a
that
reminder,
this
exactly.
is the timeframe.
Because under our, like, the POs, there's many of them that say open, but then on the far right column says
Mhm.
requested to be closed, but it's still open, but it's done. So, that's just tends to be a reminder, like, all the time. So, but
How many were there, Janet? I
Um,
only see,
there's only one that needs to
One.
be,
yes.
the 69. The 69,000 is the only one that needs to stay. All the rest of them,
I'm only seeing one that says
oh, you know what, I think.
it was requested to be closed. The others, they've been paid in full, so they will close.
Right. Exactly. Those are, like, the signs have been ordered.
Mhm.
There's, which is I dare say that's a weird one, because that's under the building, building and grounds, and that particular line doesn't match. The POs don't match what says it's encumbered, and they actually found that extra $600, but there's something funky going on, and they could not explain to me why they didn't close it, but yet it's not open on what you can see. So,
Which one?
so under, building maintenance, maintenance, building and grounds, the 1583.21, there should only be the $1,000. But if you looked at the general ledger, it actually says $1,600. And they know that something is weird with that 600, but they couldn't close it.
Okay.
They found it, they just couldn't close it.
And the only long-standing one that I'm seeing that's still open is the business card, $4,000 at the very end
Yep.
of the report.
Yep.
And did you read the note at the end about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was nice.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going back to building.
She says it's gonna go back to whatever the PO was charged.
That's still fine.
Okay, because we have a bottom line.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, all that's good.
Okay.
So actually, having brought that up, because I didn't think about it earlier, in our building line, there's, I don't know what it is right now, because I don't have it, oh, I do still have it open. In our building line, we currently have about $63,000. That's gonna have to get moved to a PO. Because it's currently like not sitting with anything.
So just before the fiscal year ends?
Correct.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is everything between POs to be covered?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So the 69 is great,
Mhm.
and then there will be extra, but specifically that 63 is definitely one that needs to be moved. Okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments, thoughts? We can move on to minutes. I have 4 sets of minutes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the March 18th public minutes. Anybody have any questions, concerns, thoughts, changes, edits? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept the March 18th public minutes.
Second. Oh.
There are 3 more. Okay, well, all those in favor? 4. All those opposed? I guess he'll abstain, because he's not here. All right. The March 18th non-public minutes? Thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept the March 18th non-public minutes.
Oh, second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Okay. The March 31st public minutes?
I have an edit for that one.
Okay.
The staffing update reviewed, after the number, it should be level 1, not level 8. That's okay?
Okay, I can make that edit. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the March 31st, 25 minutes with the change.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't there. Okay, the March 31st non-public minutes. I'd like to make a motion to accept the March 31st, 25 non-public minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? I can't. Opposed? Abstain. All right, minutes are done. What's next?
So the minutes is abstain the first or the second or the third? Like, is it third? Okay, so it's 4-0-1.
One. Yep. Committee updates, the Building Exploratory Committee is on hiatus. Friends of the Library,
We haven't had a meeting since our last meeting. Their next meeting is on next Monday night. And unfortunately, I will not be able to attend, so if somebody else would like to go, I have an MVD meeting that night.
Said, what time is it at?
6 o'clock
in the director's office.
Said,
on the
I
21st.
think I can be there. That's about
Okay. We're gonna put you down for that.
to make a note.
Okay. I lost my thought. There it is. The Merrimack Public Library Development Fund Committee. Deb was actually that committee liaison, and she is no longer with the board. So we'll have to find somebody who might be interested in attending. But Yvette, do you have any additional thoughts?
So Lynn Christensen had to withdraw from the treasurer position. So this is the second person who had to withdraw. I ran into Pat McGrath, and he said that Nelson was I was at Bill Cummings Memorial, and everyone was there. So Pat said that Nelson had just asked him to step up as the treasurer for Development Fund Committee. Pat said to me that when he has served as treasurer on other boards, his practice is to immediately request an assistant treasurer or a treasurer in training so that they can, he can really secure the succession plan. So as far as I know, Pat will be joining the board.
Yes.
So, but they still need, still short members. Nelson is still planning to step down. They'll have to elect a new chair or appoint a new chair, which hasn't happened yet. So that all should happen on the 28th.
Okay. Town Center Committee, that meets on Fridays at like noon or something. So that one's a little more difficult to get to.
Have they been meeting?
I don't even know.
I think they have not in a while, from what I remember.
I haven't seen a meeting from them in a while.
Okay. We can look into it if anybody's interested. The trustee committee updates, personnel committee.
So we're continuing to place the director job description on hold while we work on we completed the annual performance evaluation, and next up is the goal defining for the director. So that is taking priority at the moment over the job description activity, but it will be coming. Then a couple of notes from the town HR meeting, which Ruth Marie was nice enough to send to the group ahead of her departure from the board. So I'll summarize, and then Yvette, you can add anything else that you want to, but essentially the town HR provides primary resource on mostly benefit type subjects, so, retirement plan, benefits, hiring, and terminations. So it was helpful to hear from their perspective, that they also were wanting to share back with the library board that the PAR, forms for hiring could be more timely. So that was a takeaway for us. We also talked about if Yvette has a matter to raise as employee, that would go to the board chair, or the next in line, for the board, if the conflict happened to be with the chair. We talked about, though, specifically, it's not that the issue would get raised with the personnel committee, which then led to another discussion about the personnel committee and subcommittees of the board, essentially, and the structure that was suggested at the time, which I think is a good idea, is that the board agrees on the charter, essentially, for the subcommittees, and in terms of like what the work of that subcommittee is, so that everybody's on the same page. And I do think that would be helpful, in particular with personnel committee, because I know there's a lot of pieces that we discuss as an entire board. So then I think we would have to try to figure out like what the needs were in between board meetings, or you know, for those kind of potentially more frequent touch points. But I think a similar structure could also be followed for building finance, in terms of like a more defined breakout, I guess, from the activity of the entire board. You know, none of that's gonna happen overnight. So I think it was good suggestions, and maybe something that we look at for the library board goals for the coming year, once we get to the point of drafting those into existence. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, he was saying to review your bylaws.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things. I don't know if you were still in the room, or if you guys had left already, because we continued to talk. You know, there's some question of, you know, if there's a problem, you know, with personnel or with a trustee or something, then that problem can go up to the ethics committee.
Yes.
Were you still there?
Yes.
Another random thing that, in terms of the PARs, you know, Paul said that, you know, like the town council will vote to, I'm not sure how they word it, but, you know, give Paul permission to X and spend up to X, you know, so, you know, in terms of a PAR, you know, it's always a challenge for us to hire someone and get them in for onboarding as quickly as possible and not leave them hanging, you know, leave a candidate hanging. But also give finance or payroll enough time, give Sharon enough time to get that PAR, her signature or her initials go on it, and then it goes over to payroll so they can put this potential, you know, this new candidate into the, this new employee into the payroll system. So it's always, like, they want as much time as possible, and we want someone in the building as soon as possible, so it's a little bit of a conflict. So, you know, one of the things Paul said was the board could vote to give me permission to, when you say, yes, we're gonna hire them, then I don't wait for a chair signature. That's basically the short way of saying it, because we do wait for the chair signature.
Oh, when Paul, they usually will vote on it and say, and give the chair, or give
Something.
the director, in this case, authority to sign any and all
Yeah.
paperwork
Something
related
like
to
that.
that. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so, you know,
Yeah.
things to look at, I think.
Streamline.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought it was helpful. I mean, I appreciated their input and some of the context around, you know, how they would consider raising concerns, so I think it was a beneficial discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But that was all I have until non-public.
Okay. I don't have anything for the finance committee. Anything for the
We
buil-
did
and I was gonna
meet as a
say-
building committee. Do we need to re-pick committees or?
Yes,
Mhm.
that's,
Okay.
yep, you're there. Or we could save it till next month. Is there I actually have, like, do we want to assign committees now, or do you want to think about it?
I think we should talk about it quickly.
Okay, so, Molly, since you're the person for the personnel committee, tell us what
Yeah.
the personnel committee does.
Well, we're gonna develop a charter, is what we're gonna do.
When you say charter, do you really just mean like, these are,
This
these
is what the board is requesting to be like an
it's
iterative step
responsible?
in between board meetings, you know,
Okay.
and I think it is going to be partially, you know, what is most helpful for a vet and also to keep things moving.
Okay.
You know, that's my interpretation and my words, but I think we have to find a way to define that a little bit better, to put some structure around it. So what it is not, maybe, I don't know, is it easier to say
It's a
that?
great way to put it.
You know, I think, so like with any of the committees, the entire board are the ones to do that decision-making process. So, you know, I think that would apply across the board. I think it's, a little bit of a chance, at least the few meetings that we did have, in the last 6 months or so, a chance for the board to hear a little bit more in depth directly about the current state of staffing levels and like some of the impacts that are affecting the team. So to me, that's what we primarily had gone over, which is helpful context. You know, but I think we would just need to think through it a little bit more.
Okay. Does anybody have an interest in being on the, do you want to go through them all, or do you want to talk about, or get on the board?
I definitely know that I would have an interest in the personnel committee,
Okay,
Okay,
just putting it out there.
Molly?
that'd be good.
Are
do
you
we
still interested?
Yeah.
All right, so Molly and Donna, we can only have 2 people, because otherwise it's a meeting, cannot have a meeting. So we'll have, and we do not need to vote on this.
I don't think so.
No. So Molly and Donna for the personnel committee. Finance committee, I will still have an interest.
I guess it's only fitting that we do it together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Erin and I will be finance committee and building committee.
What is the typical, how often does the building committee typically meet and when?
Every other month?
Every other month.
And is it usually after hours?
It could be.
It could be. It's kind of just whatever works.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, since I was doing strategic planning, but that one's done at this point, so I'll give a shot with the building committee.
Would you rather switch? Would you rather do personnel?
I don't think I have a preference. I think I'll give building committee a try, particularly because you have an interest in personnel.
It's all
Okay.
you.
Okay. I will happily stay on the building committee if you'd like,
Okay.
unless anybody else wants to go on the building committee too.
Okay, so Molly and Donna for personnel, Erin and I for finance, and Erin and Ravi for building. Great.
Can I ask, did you sort out the Friends and the Development Fund Committee liaisons?
I did not.
Okay.
I did mark it in the minutes as a new library board member was needed for those 2 groups.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the development fund more so than the town center committee, since we're not clear on
Yeah.
the scheduling of that, but, I was gonna scroll down to see when that is next. The development.
The development fund is the 28th. 5 o'clock.
Day is that of the week?
Monday, they're both Mondays.
I should be able to do this one coming up, but if anybody else is anxious to go, feel free to speak up. But I'll plan to do this one.
Okay, so Robbie will do the Friends and you will do the Development Fund.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Action items. I have one action item, which is the budget.
Yeah.
Any others?
I didn't write down any others.
I didn't
I mean, we talked a bit about the POs and, you know,
Right.
that piece, but, I can add our 4/17 meeting, just in the upcoming events section
either. Okay,
as well. But I didn't have any others.
okay. Yvette, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, I have our action items, wish list. Yeah, you were, yeah, she's,
We have a lot.
we've got ours.
Okay.
We should be good.
Okay, so upcoming events, we have Friends on April 21st at 6 o'clock in the Director's Office. The Development Fund Committee is April 28th at 5 o'clock in the Lowell Room. There's an NHLTA, which is the New Hampshire Library Trustee Association Conference on May 1st. It's all day, it's in Manchester at the Doubletree. It's this Thursday is the deadline, if you're interested in attending.
There's a registration fee, but that's usually covered by the library, so,
Yes.
I think you can get invoiced.
Yeah.
I just registered and you pick your, sessions you want to attend, and there's lunch, parking is included,
And there's breakfast.
I would love to go.
speaker.
but Unfortunately, I'm traveling that week, cause it's school vacation week, so.
Yeah.
Anybody?
I'm not able to go to that one. Is it, I mean, I know, Janet, you and I went to one a year-ish ago, in Concord. I don't think it was this particular, conference, but, and I couldn't stay the whole day. You know, is that common, I guess, is part of my question for this conference as well, like, if I needed to do like the morning
Oh,
part,
Yeah,
or,
yes,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
you can totally do that.
Okay, so I'll
Good.
take a look then from that lens at the dates and times a little bit more, but.
Okay, and then, the Merrimack Board of Trustees, our next meeting is on May 20th at 7 o'clock in the Memorial Room.
And
Here.
Jen will be
Oh, yes,
representing the
that's right,
library
and
because
Jen's
I will
gonna
be
be here.
away. Don't scare her.
No, I'm scared. We're not scary.
Donna, any thoughts?
About what?
I don't know. Okay.
But we're gonna be here for the.
It'll be here,
meeting.
yes. Any comments from the press, public, or board members?
You're public.
Thoughts, comments? Okay, then, we are gonna go into non-public. Actually, do I adjourn, then go to non-public?
No, I think it's a motion to go into
Into non-
non-public.
right.
And
with
you
a
do a
And the roll
call.
call, right.
Yep.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to go into non-public per New Hampshire RSA 91-A:3 2A personnel. And we do that by roll call. So Erin.
Second
Yeah.
the motion.
Oh, yeah, I need to
I'll
second the
second.
motion.
Okay, since you're already there. Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yep.
Molly.
Yes.
And yes, I'm a yes. So we will go into non-public.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Chris.